What's going on, everybody? This is Ryan from RLS ASMR. So today, I got some steak and rice, a good old classic, bringing it back. I haven't made a video in a while, and I think I'm gonna be posting this on Thursday, and it's Wednesday night right now. So, hope you all are doing well. I had a great weekend, and having a great week so far. I've just spent the last week in it, basically that last week plus the weekend, out of town. Essentially, I went to, guys, you saw my last videos at Myrtle Beach. And then I left Friday that week. Came back here for a day. I went straight back up and spent the weekend at my mom's. So, but I've been back home since Monday. So, I'm just vibing. I'm just chilling. I'm trying to get more content uploaded for you. So, I got several requests from you to watch movies. A lot of and I have a huge list. Someone recommended that I watch the Maxine trilogy, or the X trilogy, whatever you want to call it. And I watched the first movie of that trilogy. I watched X, but I think I could probably do that whole. That video as a whole. Well, I could do all of those movies as one video. Someone recommended Jeepers Creepers, which I'm gonna watch. I've seen some of the older stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do like a Halloween type background, but I could talk about some, scary movies and whatnot. One I just recently watched, and I think I'll have the most to talk about, at least for this video, will be Salem's Lot. Another viewer request. And I think I was just interested in watching it in general. So I'm just trying to remember the entire plot, and I always do these, I always have some people in the comments. If I miss a few details, don't mind don't mind to tell me in the comments, but, don't be rude about it. Sorry if I forget some details, but I usually remember all the key plot points. But Salem's Lot is essentially, so there's this guy, and it's a Stephen King adaptation. So, I think people had a lot of high hopes for it. And maybe if you read the book Salem's Lot, you would probably have liked it a lot. Or you would have liked it a decent amount, because you'd have been able to, read the book and then see the adaptation. But I don't watch a lot of vampire movies, nor do I watch a lot of Stephen King adaptations. I recently just saw it, I need to watch The Shining, but anyways. So, Salem's Lot is there's this author who goes back to his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot, Maine. And he's there because he wants to do some research because he lived there until he was 9. But I think you find out that his parents died, I think in a car crash. So originally he went off to live with some extended family. But now he's back because he's trying to piece his life together, because his feeling is like, well, if you don't know where you come from, is it like, do you not, if you don't know where you come from, do you not know who you truly are? Like, I don't know. Something like that. Something cheesy. Something I would write in high school, you know. Something like that. But so he's there, he's doing research. Comes in contact with this I forget her name, was it Susie? That's like the main love interest. They start, you know, liking each other and whatever, telling each other their backstory. They go to like the drive-in theater, which is where they're having like this conversation about their backstories. Apparently she so I think she moved back there as well, because I think her dad died or something, and so she's taking care of her mom, but she's like saving up money to leave. I can't remember her exact backstory. Doesn't really matter, but then what happens? So earlier in the film, well, around that same time, you see these kids get into a fight. There's these 3 kids, and one kid gets, you know, I think they're trying to they're tying rope on him because they're trying to do some kind of like Houdini, you know, escape magic trick. But as they're setting this up, here comes like the class bully. He probably gets, you know, beaten by his dad. You know, the classic school bully who has a bad home life. He comes out and he like sucker punches the dude who's tied up. So the dude undoes the ropes, and then he props himself up like he wants to go again, because the kid who just punched him was walking away slightly. And then he charges at him. Well, the kid he punched, he sidesteps, and because the guy falls flat on his stomach, the guy who he punched, I say guy, but these are kids, you know, puts his arm behind his back and was telling him to say uncle. And they were like, he was like winning the fight. But you see the teacher from inside looks at that, and then this all, by the way, this all takes place in like the 70s. I was kind of laughing to myself because I'm like, oh wow, the 70s were so based. But anyways, you look over at the teachers. Teachers aren't doing anything. Our students are literally in the middle of like a brawl. Well, he has him pinned. Telling him to say uncle, but not letting him go. And then they do this whole thing about like, after the teacher comes out and breaks it up, they do this whole thing about like, oh hey, you know, when you win a fight, he's not even telling them not to fight, which is the funniest part. But he's like, when you win a fight like that, you gotta make sure that when they're saying uncle, you play fair and let them go. And the teacher's like, and the student's like, all right, bet. And they talk about that situation later. And he's like, the student who got hit was like, well, you can't give up or run away, because if you show them weakness, they're never gonna stop. So you had to nip it in the bud, basically. You know, you can't run away from your problems. You have to face them, that type of thing. And this is all like the first 30 minutes of the film. I'm like, wow, this is going really good. This film, you know, it's doing a lot of like setup and building up to something probably pretty interesting. And essentially what happens, I can kind of speed run the rest of what happens. I just like got something like an iBook or something, but I can like speed run the rest of what happens. But like each individual, the issue that I have with this movie is that each individual thing that happens doesn't build to something that is great that happens. You know, it's not like when I reviewed the movie Cube. I may have said this. I may have not have said this. But one of the great things that I liked about it was that it had this aura like of suspense. But one of the things looking back that I really enjoyed about it was that each time they went into a new area, you could see them slowly devolving into madness, at least that one guy. And you could kind of see a progression that you could tell was building to something. And then, even though the payoff was not lackluster, but it was meant to be lackluster, which is like the point of it, right? It was supposed to be that. And for those of you who haven't seen it, you know, spoiler alert, but if they had just stayed in the same cell that they were in, they would have made it out of the place that they were in. So the whole point of it was like their fear kind of controlled them, and you could kind of look at the art in that and go, even though it's an older movie, and you could go, wow, you know, you could kind of see how people are like controlled by their fear. Like there's that one guy who was like, hey, let's just stay here, like why move? Because, you know, why move? Like what's the point? And it was that sort of like nihilism that would have saved them, which is kind of ironic. This movie doesn't really have that. Maybe it's not supposed to, but it doesn't have like the entire movie, it feels like things just happen. It's like after that happens, right? They're hanging out at the kid who got beat at who won the fight. Those two other kids are hanging out. Those two other kids are brothers. So the older brother and the younger brother, and so the older brother's walking the younger brother home. And they come across this dude who drives by and offers to give them a lift home. And they're like, no, we're good, thank you. The most freaky scene in the entire film is the scene where that guy, he stalks them, obviously. And then he goes and he sneaks behind. So they're all walking like this. You know, it's kind of like you're seeing it from a two-dimensional like perspective. You're seeing them walk. You're seeing their profiles, but it's dark outside. And then there's meant to be this like little. Like there's a little bit of like a sunset in the background, so you can see the shadows of them in their profiles, but you don't see the details of them. And you see the guy walking behind them take the younger brother, walk off, and run off. And then the older brother's like, oh my god, what was his name? Like, I don't know, like Johnny or something, I don't know. And so, because of that, that's like the most eerie scene in the whole film. Because the rest of it is a very, like, how do I say it? It's very corny, very cheesy. So the whole point of the film is that that guy is essentially, apparently he started moving in, and he lives in like an old abandoned building, old abandoned house in the middle of the town, and he opens up some kind of like, I don't remember what store, but when he opens up a business there, but everyone seems to leave him alone because he's rich, I think, or seemingly rich. Well, it turns out that he's like a servant to like a vampire, and he abducted the kid as a sacrifice for the awakening of the full power of that vampire. And then the older brother gets abducted, or not abducted, but like he gets bitten. He dies in the hospital. And so they've had like 2 deaths in the same week. And the gravedigger, gravedigger, when he's like digging the grave for the older kid, he puts a little dirt on the coffin. And by that third piece of dirt that he puts on the coffin, the little boy like knocks on it, and then he starts screaming, "Oh, get me out of here, get me out of here." So the gravedigger goes down there. The kid's still asleep. Well, dead. Kinda. And then he's like, "Okay, I was freaking." Gets out of the grave. Continues to do his work. And then, obviously the kid comes out and like gets him, and then there's like this domino effect where they're getting people throughout the town. And it just seemed kind of like, it just seemed kind of like dull and boring after that point, because the deaths weren't really that fun until the very end, where one lady gets killed by a shotgun. On my letterbox, I gave it like a 2 out of 5. Because, like, I genuinely just didn't like. I enjoyed it for a little bit, but overall, I really just didn't like enjoy it. Overall, yeah. About 40 minutes in, almost an hour in, I was kind of begging for it to be over. When I start feeling like that, it's a no bueno. Because if a movie can be bad and still hold my attention. That's kind of how I felt about Mr. Nobody. Was that I didn't feel like it was a super great film, but it held my attention all the way through. And even the parts that I felt a little bored, I didn't feel that bored. So, recommendations, guys. Let me know. I'm looking for some good ones for sure. Cause like I keep getting recommended horror movies that are like they're either just okay or really bad. I'm not gonna watch any Wrong Turn. I watched one of those movies and I was just like super bored all the way through. I've already seen Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, Stephen King's It from the 90s. So, if it's not one of those, I have a lot of them on my list, like Jeepers Creepers and all the stuff that people have recommended over the last couple of weeks. My next video, I probably do want it to be like maybe more like Halloween centered, so maybe I might watch like Jeepers Creepers and review that. But oof, I'm full. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit shorter than my regular videos, but I'll definitely make sure to like upload some more throughout this week. So y'all stay tuned for that. And I will catch you guys